speaking of that, I actually just saw something go by through the cannabis space in regards to an announcement regarding some recall on possible mold. I don't know if you saw that. There was like 17 brands that.
I did see that actually. Yeah.
Did you cover that? Can you kind of know? I was going to say what. I mean, that's pretty scary. Again, to they're big brands, and I see them on shelves. So for
Well,
somebody
that's
that's.
kind of, I won't like bash on any brands or talk about specifics, but it's something we need to think about, especially when we talk about storage of a natural product like cannabis that has varying levels of moisture or water activity
Yes.
in it, right? Like, we don't, I don't think we store cannabis correctly, like at dispensaries. I think it should be stored, whether it's concentrates or flower, like in a temperature controlled environment where we can actually study the shelf life and we can study, at different water activities or moisture levels, like how is that mold going to grow? And we just kind of transport it at whatever temperature, store it at whatever temperature. And I think as the industry grows, we're going to start seeing more regulation there because if it was any other medicine or any other, product that was a plant, I think we would be studying that a little more, especially when you think about like med patients and how that could be, much scarier for someone like who is immunocompromised compared to
Yeah.
a healthy person who could fight off, aspergillus or some other mold or mildew.
Yes. No, and a lot of my girlfriends who have been consumers for a really long time, even me, we've been getting some really weird, I don't want to say panic attacks. They're like random spurts. I guess they are panic attacks. Like for me, I'll use myself for example. In the past year, I've been a heavy smoker all my life. I've probably been dabbing for the past 3 years, but not a daily dabber, more of a flower out of a bong, but pretty regularly. I can probably go through an eighth pretty easily through a day.
Yeah.
But lately driving, and I've smoked and drive and smoke. I get like these weird like moments where I feel like I'm having a panic attack, kind of like my blood sugar is plunging. And I can't tell if that's the case or if I'm just like totally ripped, but definitely feeling like there's been a change in how my body's receiving the smoke. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking like maybe the terps in certain strains I've been getting because I'm changing around the type of strains that I'm getting are like making me more racy than more like myself. I don't know. It's so hard to tell. I'm like, I think I need a journal now.
Well, I think there's multiple things happening here. One, I definitely think, terps are getting stronger. We having higher and higher percent terpenes in our cultivated cannabis. You'll see it 3-4%, which is high. And if you do have a high amount of some of the terps that might make people feel anxious, like maybe it's terpinolene, maybe it's limonene, like you feel a little more anxious. But I think this conversation gets more interesting because a lot of people between 30 and 40 years old tend to experience this specifically. Like this age group
Mm,
experiences this specifically. And
mm.
I've had, dozens and dozens and dozens of people come up to me and talk about this. I think it's a change in our endocannabinoid system around this age that makes us more sensitive to THC. And I think it's partly our body and partly the strength of the weed, and the combination results in anxiety. That's
Wow.
something we wanna study, by the way. This is like a future project because we're fascinating on how your ECS changes over time, and seeing trends like this when we start to study the cannabis population of consumers and we start to ask the right questions, we start to see these really interesting trends emerge, and then that helps us guide, the next, research project and where to go with that.
Sign me up. I would love to be researched or be part of that research. Yeah,
I
I
know I
always
will.
I'm
It's gonna
it's
be
like,
interesting.
I'm gonna be 40 next year. And there's just been so many different changes in from how I need to change my nutrition, how I need to change my workouts, and how my recovery is nowadays versus even my energy levels. I could always tell like if I'm eating shitty. It just all travels into everything, like you said, that we eat, that we smoke is
Mhm.
making a change. But I feel like I've always been this way. So now I'm like, what is changing? So yeah, I think I can fit right
But
into
it
that
makes
research.
sense. if we think about our endocannabinoid system, right? It is a system that's involved with every other system in our body. It's like the master regulator. And if you feel these other parts of your life changing, your ability to like metabolize or your affinity towards certain foods, your ECS is absolutely involved in that. So that means something's changing with your ECS, and the way cannabis interacts with your body is through your ECS. So if that system's changing, then your reaction to cannabis would absolutely be changing. So I think it's very rational for this to be happening. I think we just don't understand what those effects are on us. And I do think things like overstimulation and anxiety and paranoia are definitely part of that.
Yeah, I had some of my girlfriends just say, I'm not smoking anymore." I was like, "Oh my, all right, well, you gotta
And
do what's good for you," you know? I
well,
know
that
I've
kind of
seen.
sucks too, because it's like you kind of want to just keep doing it because it's part of your routine and part of your community and part of your friend group, right? But at the same
Yeah,
time, like with any medicine, the goal should really be to not always need the medicine. And I think it's also
yes.
kind of a beautiful thing. Like as we age, we just don't need the medicine as much. Like our body's saying, like, hey, like we did that for a long time. Like, let's chill for a little bit now. Like maybe
Yeah.
we need less moving forward.
Right, right. Yeah, and a lot of times some of my friends still do plugs and they're getting their stuff from people that have no testing, no labeling. And I'm like, you've got to change that up, unless you're diving in and assessing your flower like to the T, like opening up a magnifying glass and seeing what's inside. That's the point that I'm at now, just because of all the things, the more we dive into education and the more you put yourself in these rooms and these conversations, you just get to know like what are the possibilities of risk that you're taking when you're consuming products that you don't know aren't being tested, where they're coming from, how they're being stored. So there's just so much to think about, and it fits right into fitness and nutrition because it's the same thing. It's like you are what you eat. So we have to think about that all the way around.
Right, you are what you smoke too. Like, you
Yes.
are what you put into your body. So, yeah, I mean, if you're constantly smoking, like, mid-grade moldy weed, that's obviously not gonna be as good for you if you were smoking high quality, pesticide-free, organically grown, that really good sticky, icky organic stuff. It's a fully different experience, and the value is different, and, like, the what you get out of it is fully different. The
Yeah.
experience of like a good product versus a bad product. And of course, there's financial barriers too, but we won't get into that right now.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's a perfect transition because I'm a big advocate too for the sun grown, our NorCal farmers, obviously